Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Joel Elston here. Today is Thursday, August the 2nd, 2018, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, your first daily dose of happy for the day. And the week is moving right along. Good things are happening. People are getting challenged. And the people who understand the law of attraction are realizing, you know what? During those challenges, that's when I've got to get myself into that good, aligned, happy place and just sail right through them. And that's what we love about pursuing our dreams of being deliberate creators, because we know how to do it now, right, Joel? I mean, we know what the secret is. The secret is get into alignment, get into that good feeling place.
That's the answer. That's what we do every week. That's what our goal is to help others understand and continue our journey in that. It's such a, to me, it's the most incredible gift we've been offered as humans, is the ability, number one, to control our perspective, and number two, to use that perspective to create and attract what we really want in our lives. And when you understand that's what it's all about, that is sort of the point of it all, it really becomes such a great journey. I enjoy learning. I enjoy understanding how it works, and I see it work so well in my life. And when other people get it, it's such a great thing to see them get it. It's like an awakening.
Absolutely, yeah. So we haven't talked in a week. How are things going? I presume that your life is going great, because you sound good. I mean, you sound like you're just energized and ready to go as usual.
Well, yeah, it really is. Things continue to go incredibly well. I have, like anybody else, I have a normal life. There's things going on, but what I believe that when I remind myself, I have a job. I'm a life coach. I work. I really, it's probably more called a career than a job. A job has sort of a negative connotation to it, but I get the ability to daily sit down with people and explain these concepts. And I have great examples this week, and I've been waiting to share them. And obviously I don't divulge anybody's confidence, but I can use generic examples of people in their life. And I change some facts often so they could never be identified. So I give that disclaimer, but I met with, several different people this week, but I had two new clients, and one is a young man that's been stuck. He was at college. He left college. He's from a upper middle class family. He's not motivated to do much, but a very bright, outstanding kid. But he's also, that's his gift and its curse, because he has the ability to manipulate others. He's such an outstanding, he's got a great personality. But he manipulates himself into believing that he doesn't have to do much, and he has a bunch of thoughts that have really sort of made him very stuck. And the other client is a young lady who is a very bright young lady who very much has an incredible, one of the most intense feelings of victimhood that I've ever met. It's just everything in her environment, everyone is after her. If people would just work harder to make her feel better, life would be better. If her mom would dedicate more of her life. Now, this is a grown 27-year-old woman who, if her mom would just spend more time and not date other men because she's divorced, and the trauma of the divorce when she was grown when their parents got divorced, and she views it as a trauma. And I'm not minimalizing her feelings. I'm pointing out she is so invested in them. So so you sort of understand each client. And the young man was in one of my first introductions with everyone is to, have them explain what their biggest problems are, and from their perspective, and then sort of use that as a conduit into wherever we go. And eventually the law of attraction will always come about. Well, the young man, we helped discover within a session or two, we helped discover his disabling beliefs. They were, pretty obvious, and he's able to accept for the most part, the law of attraction and how he can change his mindset, and really got into the process. And within 2 sessions was really well on his way. And he's having the normal thing that most people have with the law of attraction in the beginning. Now, what about people with disease? Do they really attract that? Who's at fault? And so he's right on track. Everybody has that initial
right.
pushback. That's the area most do. Well, and then the young lady, no matter what I suggested, was like, no. It's everybody else's problem. It's I'm doing everything within my power, but nobody's supporting me. And so when I tried to empower her, just help her see her perspective, I just got incredible pushback. Well, I knew instantly, or by the end of that session, there is no way she's having a second appointment with me. Only because I was unintentional, and I was very kind, but I was attacking the point of her existence. And her point of her existence is the resistance to the law of attraction, resistance to her self-responsibility. And the reason I share those quotes, it leads into our topic today, what we put out there, what our internal dialogue, what our attitude, what our perspective, what we're attracting is what we have in the subconscious. And while we're not directly in charge of the subconscious mind, we have the ability to program the subconscious mind, which then creates our reality of how we see things. And that's sort of the beginnings of the law of attraction. And so when we hear people say, it isn't just about just being grateful and everything's going to be perfect, it doesn't work that way. The reason most of us start with gratitude, it is the most influential, in my opinion, the influential state of mind, a grateful mindset that has the quickest and the most direct effect on the subconscious. And I don't know if you agree with that, but that's my perspective.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think appreciation is a big thing. And especially when you're hung up on something, appreciation is a great way to let go of it. Because that's really what it is, right? It's the resistance. It's the resistance to, we have these resistant thoughts. We don't realize that they're necessarily resistant. We don't realize that they're what are holding us back, but they are. And we're trying to unearth them, and we're also trying to learn how to release them. Well, it starts with just that, just what you're talking about.
Yes, and that mindset of gratitude is so. When you cannot find a period of gratitude or a point of gratitude, and you're solely in the mode of all my issues are everyone else's problem, and I am a victim of society, then gratitude doesn't occupy that same mindset. So it's almost to be grateful. One of the things I do is there's certain words when I'm having a session with people, I count. I literally count words that they say. And I don't want to give them all away today because somebody's having a session with me. I don't want to have them be conscious of that. But one of the words that I track, and it tells me where a person is at a lot of times, is the word "but." Like, well, that works for me, but, or that and this young lady, she used the word "but" in a 1-hour session, probably. Well, not probably. I remember I quit counting at 50. At 50, I said, okay, that's we get the point.
We got a pattern
here. I know
here.
It was more than 50. Yeah, right. And but was always like when I would explain, well, yes, but you have a good job, and of course, her boss is mean, and all the employees don't appreciate all the work she does, and so I'm trying to help her understand that her perspective is helping to dictate that. Well, I agree with that, but here's why that doesn't work on my case. And at one point she actually said, well, I understand what you're saying, but it doesn't work for me right now. Maybe one day it will. So in other words, she was saying, I'm very comfortable in my uncomfortable feelings, and I want to keep, they're serving me on some level. So I'm going to keep doing that. And that's a mindset. I give her great credit for identifying on some level where she's understanding it or not. I'm sure she was cussing me on the way home, but I'm sure I appreciate the fact she can see that she's really, at the end of the day, she wants to stay where she's at because she's getting something out of it.
Yeah. And
I don't know exactly what that is, but
well, she knows, and that's all that really matters. I mean, she has a very definite thing that she feels like she's getting out of it. But then there are also people. This is something I see a lot of on Facebook. People posting, questions about, well, how how do I do this? How do I get the law of attraction to do this? Like, I want to influence this person to call me, or I want this boyfriend to come back, or I want, I want these various events to happen that I know other people have to take action, but I want to influence them to do that. Like, how do you answer that? How do you respond to that when you get that in a client session?
Well, most of the time, when you're doing that, you can get a person to understand the law of attraction is it's sort of yours to control for you. I can't control another person's situation. I can invite like-minded people toward me, but if I get stuck on, and The Secret actually does a good job about this, if somebody doesn't want to be in a relationship with you, all the law of attraction in the world is not going to make that happen. You have to understand that they're in their own manifestation and their own. If it's not going to match, what you can bring to you is the more the general. I can bring a healthy relationship to me. I can't say I want an old girlfriend back specifically because I really love her. Now she's married with 3 kids, but I want her back. The law of attraction is not going to go invade. It's not going to go in there and rip her world apart just to fulfill you, if that makes any sense. So the idea is helping people understand what they're really after. He or she is not after that other partner that they used to have. What he or she is after is a quality, healthy, loving relationship, and that's what you work on for yourself. That's what you try to attract. So trying to influence others or manipulate or control other people's, you can't do that. Mike Dooley does a lot of talk about the generalization. A lot of people, you can't go after stuff. You can, but it won't be effective. The law of attraction is not effective in going after stuff when you set yourself up to make it impossible. I use the example: if I really want to, with all my heart and with all my soul, I cannot do certain things because there's not a belief that doesn't match. I can't make Donald Trump resign as president, or I can't make someone do something that I wanted to just on my own manifestations. You understand that? Mm-hmm. It's other people's will, and that's what I try to get them to see. There's the law of attraction works in conjunction. There's a harmony with everything. So when you're trying to attract something that's not in harmony with another exact person or an exact situation, then that doesn't necessarily fly. Mm. And most people get that, but it's very much, a lot of times, especially early adopters of the law of attraction are really believing that I can specifically make this person do what I want that person to do. But that very thought is really counterintuitive to the law of attraction.
Yeah, it really is. And in fact, I'm recalling an instant message, instant messenger, private messaging kind of thing, where I'm having a private conversation. Somebody approached me and said, I'd like to ask you some questions. I said, sure. And the gist of where we were going was along this line. And the point that I tried to make to this person is, I am a deliberate creator, and therefore I can use the law of attraction to, I can try to influence somebody else with the law of attraction, but I also have to remember that they are also deliberate creators. Or maybe they're even default creators, but they still are very powerful creators, even if they don't understand how the whole deliberate creation process works. Even if they've never heard of the law of attraction, they're still creating. I mean, because every single thought, every single emotion, it's all feeding into this vortex thingy, right? And we're constantly putting out signals of one kind or another. So we're all in creation mode. So, I can influence somebody else, but they've got to be receptive to the influence. If they're not receptive to the influence, then it's really not going to accomplish anything. And so his reply was, well, that means that's a limit to the law of attraction. And I said, no, it's not. It's a limit to the fact that we're all people with free will. The limit is with the fact that we're individuals. It's not that the law of attraction has a limit. It's that people have limits. This is how far I'm willing to go. This is how far I'm willing to go with my thought processes. This is what I want. That's what I don't want. Those are the limits. It's not the law of attraction. It's the limits that we place in our own thoughts.
Well, and that gets into the mindset, because when you're really looking at it, and this Abraham Hicks speaks of this a lot. And several practitioners do as well. It addresses this directly. The law of attraction has zero limits. the law of attraction also has to work in harmony with you are not the sole. While you're a powerful creator, you are one of 300 billion powerful creators on the planet.
Yeah, or at least 7 billion.
That's
anyway.
how that or however many billions there are.
Yeah.
So you really are. You're one of those. You're one of them, but you're not the sole one. So just that the harm. It's vibration. It's energy. If you want to tune in with like-minded people or invite someone in a like-mind, then you're going to have to match that energy. When your energy is stuck on one outcome, that's what happens a lot when people get stuck on one outcome with the law of attraction. It's not in harmony with the law of attraction will provide, but you have to keep it more open to the idea of, if I want financial fulfillment for a certain way, okay, I want to be financially secure. I don't want to be dependent upon a shaky job or all the. So then you need to put that out there. Now, that's different than saying I must win the Powerball Friday night. I must. Well, the law of attraction is not going to accept your must. Now, it will fulfill the financial as you believe going forward, but deep down, you really don't believe you're going to win the Powerball. You really don't believe it, because the odds are so against. So the odds of you doing that, the law of attraction will not, unless you were just so 1,100%, whatever the term, way beyond. You really knew it in your heart, but you can't really know it in your heart when you know it's 1 in 245 million shot or whatever it is to win.
Right, yeah.
It's just not. It's not really a. Most people realize, being struck by lightning in the state of Florida, you're 3 times more likely to be struck by lightning than win the lottery. And nobody walks around Florida worried about being struck by lightning. It happens. That concept happens when you think about it. So it with the law of attraction is the same thing. So that's where a lot of people get very, very frustrated, because they get stuck on one course of action, what they think the law of attraction should do. And the law of attraction doesn't respond to what your plan is. It responds to fulfilling the emotional need. It's more nebulous than that. When you put out there, I want abundance, it will provide you a conduit to abundance, but you can't be stuck on the only way to abundance.
The interesting thing, too, is when someone gets kind of stuck on that, on it has to be just this one thing that I'm looking for. This one person has to react the way I want them to, or this one event has to happen, or this one great experience has to happen in just the way that I'm imagining it. People don't realize that, first of all, there's a reason why they're asking for that, and it's a reason that they're not looking at. And the reason usually is tied in some way to, it will make me feel better. It will. I think it will some way enhance my life. I think that my life will be more fulfilling. It will be more abundant, that I'll just be able to do the things I want to do, and yada, yada, yada. And they figure, well, okay, those are the things that I want, so therefore I'm going to control the situation by focusing on this is how I'm going to get there. And what they don't realize is when you do that, you're cutting off a whole bunch of other possibilities that you'll never even see, because you said, oh, no, it has to happen this way. It can't happen any other way. It can't be any other person, can't be any other event, can't be any other experience. It's got to be the one that I describe very particularly. When you do that, you've eliminated the possibility of the universe delivering all these other possible wonderful ways of giving you the happiness, the abundance, the joy, the excitement, the appreciate, all the stuff that you want.
And that because when you're trying to manifest abundance or happiness or joy or love or whatever, the law of if that other person is like oftentimes when you have somebody in that mindset, they're in a very how would you describe it? Sort of a codependent or not a healthy mindset or a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
So the law of attraction is aware of that, and it's saying, no. You're saying you want healthy, happy, abundance, and relationship, but what you're putting out there doesn't match what you're saying you want, because that's not healthy for you. So that's very much. Because again, it's more of I was trying to explain this to the young man and he's really getting this well. Very excited. He's working with me on this. Good. But the tuning in portion of this is understanding what really happens. It isn't gratitude that immediately kicks everything off. The gratitude, when I say I'm grateful, I was sitting in jail years ago due to my addiction and a horrible set of choices I made. And I was writing 5 things I'm grateful for every day. I'd been doing that before I went into jail. I've done it since I've been out of jail. And I write them down. What I was doing is I was reprogramming my subconscious. The gratitude did not immediately unlock the jail door for me, but it began a process of me looking at jail differently. It made me understand that this isn't the worst place I've ever been. This is part of my new beginning. And it became a pivotal moment in my recovery. So that's an important fact to understand what it's doing. It's responding to the emotion that you're seeking. The frequency. You can, if you think you're tuning into a certain frequency, and you're like, this is a really good example. I don't know what this just popped into my mind. In Florida, one of the stations I listen to is 98 Rock. I listened to it since I was a kid. And I believe it was 97.9 was the exact number. Mm-hmm. Well, 97.9 up in Richmond I think it's hip hop. Not exactly the same concept.
Not quite, no.
So what I can tune in, if I'm just determined to only listen to 97.9, then I can tune into 97.9, but I am stuck on the frequency that is being put out by 97.9. I have to be open. What I really want to listen to is more alternative or classic rock. That tends to be what I like the most. Mm-hmm. So what I need to do is not get stuck on my version of that and just say, I'm really looking for alternative music, classic, and then find it that way versus I have to listen to 97.9. And that's sort of that idea of when we're trying to do it, that you're not in charge of the law of attraction in general. You're in charge of your law of attraction. And that helps understand it or clarify it a little bit better for some people.
Yeah, that's a nice example you came up with. It's a nice twist on the classic example, because the classic example is if you want to listen to 97.9, you can't tune into 92.5. It won't work. But you've turned it into, right. Well, if you're insisting on 97.9 because you want to listen to your particular kind of music, and your particular kind of music isn't on 97.9, you've just screwed yourself.
Exactly.
That's really good. I like that.
Understanding, yeah, and so and that's where and that's where a lot of people are just really stuck. That you're not in charge of the frequency at all. You're in charge of what you're seeking. The frequency is its own unique thing. I don't know when I'm thinking of love and abundance or fulfillment. I'm not saying, okay, that's frequency 1,847 megahertz. I'm not thinking that. It doesn't match.
Right.
I don't know it. I don't understand it. I just know the emotion. The universe converts it. And so the idea of one solution to a problem limits the universe's ability, and you don't know. Like, for example, there are thousands, millions of people who are believers in the law of attraction in the United States.
Yep.
It is a really huge group. And the idea that if we all manifest winning the lottery tomorrow night, we all win about $7. So
that's a great perspective. I like that.
Yeah. So so when I'm really seeking abundance and fulfillment, and I think it's going to be through the lottery. Well, if everybody were to tap into that, then none of us have abundance. So the law of attraction, that's not abundance. So let's step away from that. So.
That's funny.
Yeah. So when you see that, the other day, this was really good. The other day I was leaving my office, my 11 to noon appointment. I was going to lunch, so I walked out with him, and he was very much, he's been there a while, came to me with addiction issues, really has those under control. Now he's very much in the law of attraction, understanding it, working. He goes, I want to manifest money in my life. And I said, oh, well, you'll find money. That's no problem. Just think, I said, but we're really thinking more in terms of abundance. He goes, I want to be specific. I want money. So we were laughing about, I said, money. And this is a true story. We go to the parking lot that's behind my office, and there are 4 pennies on the ground.
Well, there you go.
I said, well, I'll be damned. I said, there you go. You did it. And he goes, Oh, I get your point. I really want abundance. I said, yeah, you really want abundance. I said, because you manifested money real quickly. And the funny part was, though, he actually used it in a really good way. He said, Joel, those pennies were not there when I walked in. He said, so
he was looking for them.
He said, there's something to this. Yeah. So one of the things that since that happened on Monday of this week, so what I've done, and I average seeing, six, 7 people a day. And so one of the things that I have done this week is I've had several texts. I'm telling everybody, I said, be aware for the next, and I want our audience, and feel free to email if this happens, and wherever you're in the country, or the world, the equivalent of a penny. In the next 24 hours, you will see a penny on the ground, and you will think about this statement.
Oh, guaranteed.
You will see a penny on the ground.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. And when you do it, then you'll realize I brought that penny. Now, the penny, we can get into a multi-level debate about whether the penny was already there, but you will see a penny, and your awareness of it right now will bring it to your attention. And that's the law of attraction on a very tiny micro level. But that's the bigger thing. The penny is already there. Your attention attracts it to you. Your abundance is already there. The right attention attracts it to you. The relationship you need is already there. The right attention attracts it to you. That's a perfect example.
It is, yeah. And as you were describing that, it was occurring to me, I think I can give one reason why it is people micromanage this stuff. They understand the importance, at least on some level, they understand the importance of being clear about their request. And if you define your request in terms of one particular person or one particular thing, one particular amount of money, one particular job, one particular state of health, one particular relationship, whatever it is, if you can focus on one, then you can imagine the details easier. Because, well, in many cases, it's something you actually know. If you're attracting a person, it's like, it's got to be that particular person because we were together for a time and the first few days were wonderful. And yeah, it was sucky after that, but I want those first few days back. And I know who that person is, and I know what they look like, and I know what they're like. I'm going to visualize that particular person because it's easier. It's easier to do that. Whereas, how do you visualize abundance? It's harder to visualize abundance. It takes more work. It takes more kind of realigning your thought process, saying, geez, I wonder what does abundance look like and how does it feel? If I'm experiencing abundance, what's it like to experience it? That takes a little bit more doing. It takes a little bit more focus. It takes a little more concentration.
But it also helps understand how this works. And this is, again, very important. It also helps understand everything. When I focus on what it feels like to have abundance, to have whatever you want, I'm more interested in the emotion of how that feels than I am of the actual concept of money. Money is not just abundance. Money is a conduit to abundance. It's a piece of abundance, but that's not it. When you think about, that's where vision boards or concept of vision boards are really good. If I want to see a house, and I would love to live in this part of the country, and I'd love to live in a house like this. And I visualize abundance would be no stress of finances. Abundance would be no worry about paying the electric bill, no worry about paying your bills. Feeling that is what the abundance is. That's what the universe fills the void in. Living stress-filled, I have to have $100 by tomorrow to pay my electric bill. That is not manifesting in abundance. That's actually pushing it away because you're fearful of not having the money. And again, that's what you're tuning into, being fearful of that.
Right. It's what Abraham calls focusing on the lack of the money rather than the money itself.
Right. And that's what most people have trouble with. That's what most people have a lot of trouble with. Mm-hmm. And that's why I really like this concept of all of this is when I understand the emotion of abundance, so the emotion of a good relationship, and you don't think you're getting it, well, you're not understanding what you're trying to bring to yourself. The lack of money and the fear of money and the fear of where all that is creates a lack. It isn't tuning into the abundance. It's actually pushing abundance away, because the emotion attached to money is usually negative, and or an abundance is usually a negative. Is it's fear based. So anything fear based will never bring to you it'll bring more fear.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really important point, Walt. And so many people, including me for so long, when money was my sole focus and all I worried about, waking up and how am I getting money to cover this, how money to cover that, living in fear of that, I lived every day in that. And I always had enough, it seemed like, but I was so focused on just the bare minimum that all I had was the bare minimum. And that's such a great lesson.
Yeah. It's one of those things that's kind of hard to notice when you're in the midst of it. The way that I found that I notice it most often is when I try to apply the Abraham process of segment intending. That's where you have your next part of your day, your next piece of your day that you're going to be doing something. And before you do that, you get yourself into the happiest place you can be in, the highest vibration, highest excitement, the best feeling place you can be in before you do it. Or in your case, and I've told this story to numerous of the other co-hosts, how you'll actually start doing the process of just doing something, and then while you're doing something, you're also getting yourself into alignment. But it doesn't really matter too much what the order is. But the point is, you get yourself into that good feeling place. Because when you're in the good feeling place, now all of a sudden stuff starts to work properly. But until you do, if you don't get into that good feeling place and you're wanting something, well, that's where you end up with lack. That's where you end up with the bad feeling. Even if you don't notice that you're not feeling good, the fact is, because you're not feeling great, now you know. That's your clue. You should be feeling great. If you're not feeling great, then that's the clue that you're actually feeling lack. You're feeling, oh, this isn't working. Oh my God, I don't trust this. I doubt this. I'm not sure it's going to really work.
That's such a good point, and that's that feeling, Walt, that we're putting out there, and within one of the beautiful things that I have found within the law of attraction, there's ways of doing it to match your personality. Not everybody thinks and processes things the same way. Everybody has their own way of doing things. So while I've had other believers and practitioners of the law of attraction want to debate my concept, sort of jumping into something and then when you become comfortable with the law of attraction, I feel very comfortable of diving in the pool and then really thinking, boy, there's some water there. I'm really, so looking at that. It has worked. It served me very well. If I know what I want in general, I take action toward that, and then it sort of paves it as it goes. It's almost like the scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark when he has to take or one of the Indiana Jones series, when he has to take a step that doesn't exist and have faith that next step is there. It's that same mindset for me. So I as you become more and more accomplished in the law of attraction, or you become more comfortable with it, I know it works so well, I'm comfortable doing that. And not everyone can do that. Not everyone's ready for that. And some people like to make sure they're emotionally right completely before they get there. Or my theory is, I feel pretty good. I'm in the right direction. I'm always trying to be there. Let's move. And I like the GPS analogy the best. I mean, when I take action, my internal law of attraction GPS, it doesn't care if I go in the wrong direction. If I'm manifesting the right things, it will correct my course automatically and get me there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. And that's simply because you're feeling good about where you're going. You're feeling good about how you're going to get there. And often you don't even know how you're going to get there. Actually, for me, I never know how I'm going to get there. That's the thing that I figured out over the last few days. I mean, my batting average in terms of trying to decide, okay, this is how I think it's going to work out. This is how I want it to work out. Is my batting average is 0, 0, 0. I'm never right. It always works out in some other way than from what I had in mind.
I have had a front row seat. I've talked to you about this several times, of watching this amazing transformation in you that you're describing. I really have. Where you, somewhere along the way, and I don't know exactly when, but you made a conscious effort. I lovingly always tell you, I love it. And you used to okay, you were the guy that wanted, okay, I'm going to think about this for about 4 years. And then And then I'll plan on thinking about the next step for 2 years, and then I will do some research on that. And I mean, it was somehow you made that big flip to I'm just doing this.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when you were taking the LOA Today show, and you were basically going from the one show you were doing a week to we're going, 2 shows a day, boom,
right.
And I mean, you made that decision instantly and did it and made it happen instantly.
Yep. It was fast. It was very fast. Yeah,
yeah,
it was. It was new for me. It was a different kind of behavior because now I wasn't micromanaging it. I wasn't trying to attract that one person into my life. It had to be just that one person. I wasn't trying to attract that particular job. It had to be that particular job. I wasn't trying to attract that particular health situation. It had to be that one. I gave up on that. And when you give up on that, first of all, it feels a whole lot easier. Let me tell you that. And second of all, it just kind of happens better. And it always happens in a way that I don't expect.
Well, and that's what we've talked about. And so now you have become a big believer, or at least a practitioner of what we're talking about. Of that, you were at one point, I forget even the details because you've moved on so much, but you had several little projects you were working on. There were some good ideas and stuff, but you were just really stuck on that being your conduit to happiness and fulfillment. And then somewhere along the way, you understood, I love my radio show. I love what it brings to the table. Let me put more attention on that. And then all of a sudden you're, obviously not discussing all your private stuff on the air, but you had the other areas of your life, there became abundance in ways you didn't even realize. It sort of popped up. It wasn't necessarily your idea, but you and your wife had some great things to bring stuff around. You're in a lot different mindset right now, Walt.
Well, hey, Joel, I got to tell you, I mean, in terms of personal privacy about my private life, one of our listeners is somebody who lives in the area, and Louise and I met him a few minutes ago. His name is Dave, and he pointed out to me, Walt, you do realize I know everything about you, right? Because I'm talking about it all the time on the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you see, so you see all this happening, and you're really a great testament to that change in thinking versus a very specific path. You are in a very, you said, I want fulfillment. I want abundance. I want this life that, Lord, where am I missing? And you fulfilled that once you sort of let go of the micromanaging of the process. And that was very clear.
Yeah, that micromanaging will kill you. It really does. It tears the life out of you. It destroys your attitude. It brings you down like crazy. And every once in a while, you may even manifest something, which is quite possible to do. I'm not saying that it's not, and I know you're not saying it's not. Yeah. But then when that happens, I mean, and you can speak to this better than anyone I know because you've been through gambling addiction. Once it happens at one time, oh, God, okay, I made it work. I got to make it work again. And then you just keep doing the same thing and having loss after loss after loss after loss. And, oh, I got a victory. Right. Oh, jeez. What a way to live. Oh, my God.
Right. And that becomes such a direct conduit, again, to what we're looking for here. You have, when you hear, like, one of the arguments, and I've heard the debate, and I always get confused on who's saying what, so I try not to, not misrepresent whatever practitioner is saying what. But there's people who say, well, get the exact picture of what you want, and then exactly get that. I understand what they're saying. When you get it really exact, then you can easily envision living in that exact house. Mm-hmm. Then it brings to the equation. But what you don't understand, if that exact house, say you go on one of the real estate websites and you find the exact house you want to live there, and I'm going to manifest that. I'm not saying it's not totally possible to do it, but also if that person living there is just in love with that house and they have plenty of money and there's no way you're going to buy that, you're not getting that house. It just doesn't matter. It's just you're not getting that house. But you can look at that area and know what it's like to live in that area, and then you might live right next door to that person. That's my book, The Bench, covers sort of my journey and my recovery, and the Bench is a specific place in Florida that you can actually visit, and it's right there. And there's a little teeny house right next to it. It's right on the beach, And it is this old little yellow house right there, and it's been there forever. And I decided I was going to buy that house. And I tracked down the owner. I looked at property records, and I called him up, and I said, I'd like to buy your house. He said, it's not for sale. Mm. And I said, that area has a lot of special meaning to me. And I explained the story, and he said, wow. He said, that's really deep. He said, I'm really glad you have such experience. And then he tells me his story, which has equal meaning to him on why he will not be selling the house.
Right.
And he raised kids in that house. One of his children passed away. His wife passed away. Her remains are around that property as well. Oh, so there's a lot of stuff that it's just not going to be. It's just not going to be. I can want it all day, but his family members behind him have told him, do not sell this house. We want it. So I can do that all day or waste all that energy, but I am attempting to violate his family's attraction as well. That is not going to work. However, there are 50 houses within a 2-block radius of that. Along the way, one of those houses will be mine. That I can guarantee.
Mm-hmm. And I want to also point out, you could still get that house. That house could still end up in your possession. What's going to happen
Absolutely.
is his situation is going to change in order to make that happen. And when will that happen?
Right.
No one knows. I mean, it could take years. It could take decades. Will you eventually get it?
Right.
Yeah, you could eventually get it. And by then, you probably aren't even interested in it. You know?
Yeah. Well, and I may, and that's the point. I'm not saying I can't work hard enough mentally and do that, but that might be, I might be 90 years old at that time.
Right.
And or I can manifest the house around the corner and have the same environment. So that's sort of where everything is at. It's sort of not being controlling or trying to, here you have this massive power in the law of attraction. It's to me, the greatest strength we have as humans. And yet you're trying to specifically control it through your narrow perspective. It's like, I use this analogy for ADHD brain a lot, but also use it with the law of attraction. You can't jump into a NASCAR vehicle tomorrow and take it out on the interstate and probably not run it into a tree if you don't have some training on how to drive a 1,200 horsepower car.
True.
You just can't. You got to understand how to drive that much power. Law of attraction is so much power, but it doesn't work in the way in our perception. Often it works in its own way, and it's our job to tune in. That's the thing when people say, "Well, it doesn't work for me." No, it's working for you. You just don't know how it's working for you. It's working either for or against you, or whatever your perception is, but it is working.
Yeah, it's interesting how often when somebody says it doesn't work, what they really mean is it's working in a way that I don't like.
Right. Well, it's like the young lady that is, she, when I pointed out to her, the law of attraction is working super strong in her because everything is negative. Everything is falling apart. Everything is the opposite of what she wants. That's her life. Everything is going that way. And that's what she's going to continue to get. And she, of course, that angers her that I say that. And because it's everybody else's fault.
Yes.
It's everybody else's fault.
It's funny too, because that's a very easy perspective to have. It's all because that way you get to blame everybody else. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to accept any responsibility when you're in that place. And yet at the same time, it's also a really difficult place to be because you actually can't make anybody else do anything. I mean, you can influence them. If they're on the same wavelength as you are, then yes, you're going to be the person who's going to get that house. You're going to be the person who's going to get that job because you're on the same wavelength. But you got to be on the same wavelength. If you're on 92.9 and they're on 96.7, you can try all you want, but 92.9 is never going to talk to 96.7. It's just not going to do it.
Yes, and that helps. That helps a lot, and that's such a that is the perspective that best serves us. If you think about it that way, when you can see it from that way, and you understand that and that's the beauty. That is the ongoing thing that I continue to work on. I continue to focus on is how do I get better and better at this. I feel I've gotten really good at it, and I think I'm still not anywhere near where this power could go. Yeah, I'm fascinated by it. I love it. I feel this concept has cured my depression and anxiety, and understanding that all of that, my thoughts are mine to control. My environment is mine to create. That doesn't mean I can make anyone else behave in any way that I want them to. I can only in charge of how I respond to how they behave. Now, my response to how they behave will often dictate their response to me. Like, I treat people as I believe in them. I work with a lot of foster care kids, younger clients, and I treat them as I see them. I don't treat them with the labels they believe they are. I treat them in the way that I see them. These incredibly resilient, outstanding people who have been through so much, and they're still in the battle. And they're not used to being treated that way. They're being told how messed up they are and how screwed up their brains are and how their life is screwed up.
Yeah, which is getting a new message like that makes a huge difference. This kind of leads to the question, okay, Joel, I know that I am a micromanager. I get it. And I have been micromanaging. I've been trying to make certain things happen in certain ways. And I get now, okay, yeah, that's not the right way to go. But I don't really know how to turn that around. What do I do? And for myself, I mean, you described my situation very nicely. And very publicly. Thank you so much for that. No, I'm teasing on that. But you described it very, very well. But yeah, you did. You described it really, really well. And when I was going through that, I actually asked myself very much the same question: How do I let go of it? And as soon as I said the words, "How do I let go of it?" I realized what the answer was. The very, 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 very first step is to say, you know what? I'm willing to let go of that. I'm just willing to let go of it. Right. I don't know what my second step is yet, but I'm willing to let go of it. And then after I had sat with, I'm willing to let go of it for a while, then second and third steps came along. I think in my case, it was along the lines of what you were talking about earlier about appreciation. Like, you know what? I appreciate the idea of having abundance because now I don't have to even figure out how to make it happen. I just let the universe do that for me. I don't have to figure out what it's going to look like. All I have to do is figure out how it feels to me and what the experience is.
You gave yourself such a break when you did that. You were expending a lot of energy telling the universe how this was going to work. And when it gave you a signal that it wasn't going to work that way, you're like, no, universe, I'm sorry, you're getting it wrong. Let me re-explain it to you. And the universe kept saying, no, Walt, this isn't going to work. And you're like, nope, I'm sorry. I don't think you understood me the last 7 times. And so eventually the law of attraction just snapped its fingers, and you're like, wait a minute. I'm trying to be the rudder propelling the boat instead of steering the boat. You're the rudder. You can guide the direction of it in general, but you're not the propulsion unit of the boat. And that's the law of attraction. That's the view of it. You're able to, the law of attraction, it's there. It's going to be there. You just got to give it the general idea that this is what I'm after. And once it buys into that, again, in a very admirable way, the way I admire you and I'm grateful to have sort of had this front row seat to watch you do this. I've just watched this work in your life. And, when you're going through it, I don't know if you know how drastic it is. It's like when I laugh at this. When I see somebody's kids that I haven't seen in a couple of years and they've grown like 2 feet and, they're like, oh my God. Well, to the parent, they don't realize it because they see the kid every day.
Sure.
But to the person who barely sees the kid, it's like, is that even the same kid? Does it even look like him?
Yeah.
And that's sort of, from when you're in the middle of it, you're like, well, this worked. But it's such a different place for you. And it's so exciting and admirable. And the fact that it happened, if people were to go back and listen to the podcast over, how long have we been doing this, Walt? All these
6 years. It'll be 6 years in September, believe it or not. Yeah.
Wow. If they go back to the beginning, a lot of this is chronicled in our podcast of where you're at and the way you changed that. It's such an amazing journey, and it's so awesome to see it.
I like, too, the way Abraham Hicks describes it with their metaphor of the boat, because you mentioned a boat, too, steering the boat. And their metaphor is what they call it, like the upstream, downstream metaphor. You can get into your boat and you can start paddling upstream like crazy trying to get to your goal. But the problem is everything you want is downstream. So all you really have to do is let go of the oars, and the current will turn the boat and point you downstream. The hard part is letting go.
Absolutely, I love that.
The hard part is letting go of the oars because we're so used to the idea we're the ones who got to take ourselves there. It's hard to let go of the oars. It's hard to say, I just release, I just give up and let, you do it, universe. I'll let you do it. That's hard to do it, especially at first.
Right. It's getting stuck on something and not understanding. I actually heard Bill Gates describe this real well in an interview one time, and he wasn't talking about the law of attraction. He had the concept of Windows. He wanted an operating system that would do all that it did. Before Windows came along, there was just the average human couldn't use a computer. You needed something as a sort of a gateway to the computer. And that was his view of that. And most people were saying, oh, no, that won't ever work. And he's the first one that said, I want computers in every home. One day I envisioned people will have computers in their hand walking around. And it just seemed crazy what he was saying at the time. And that's exactly what we have right now. So with that being said, I want to look at where, I want all of us to understand. He was talking, he said, I kept getting stuck in certain things that had to be when I would lose track of. I wanted an operating system that would have the overall, make the internet and computers and make this a very open thing to the general public. He said, and sometimes me wanting a certain way was conflicting with the overall mission. It wasn't until he got the right people in place that helped him step away from the stuff that wasn't matching his mission. You get stuck on the minutia of the mission and you never get to the mission. And that's that was such a law of attraction thing. And he didn't know that's what he was saying.
Yeah, that's true. In fact, there's also a couple of pieces that go along with that story that have some fascinating repercussions associated with them. One is, you described beautifully how he wanted Windows to be so ubiquitous, so everywhere. He actually wasn't the first one. The first one wasn't even Steve Jobs at Apple, although they did it first. They actually had a desktop going before Windows had a desktop going. But they had a big fight. They actually had a huge lawsuit, Bill Gates Windows, Microsoft against Apple over, did Microsoft steal Apple's technology, which was really ironic because Apple stole it from Xerox. The whole idea of the mouse, the internet, the desktop, all that was created at Xerox. And Xerox, this is what's so interesting about it, Xerox had their own idea about how all that should look, how it should all work. And what they had in mind didn't work. It took Steve Jobs to steal the idea and start applying it and turning it into something that would work better. And then Bill Gates stealing that idea and turning it into something that would be even more ubiquitous because Steve Jobs wanted to limit it to, oh, no, it's just our computers that are going to have it. And Bill Gates said, no, every computer should have it. So each one of them contributed. Xerox contributed, well, here's the idea for it. But their idea was too limiting. Steve Jobs said, well, here's how you actually turn it into a desktop that works well, that's very friendly and user-friendly. And that was great, except he wanted to limit it to just Apple machines. And then Bill Gates comes along and says, well, here's how I take that concept and turn it into something that everybody can use on any machine.
Wow. Isn't that amazing? And you see it. And that's when we look at all these examples in life, and one of the ones that I do public speaking about, and I've mentioned this on the show before, and I'll do it real briefly. But this gentleman went to his goal. He's from a wealthy family, and his goal was to go do an investment in a property to help him stand out in his family. His family was a great business family. And he heard about this in Cisco, Texas. He heard about this bank for sale, and he wanted to go see the bank. And he went down and he negotiated for 4 or 5 days, could not come up with a deal, was very disappointed. He was going to be disappointed in his family, all this other stuff. Well, he was staying at a hotel across the street from the bank. Well, he ended up buying the hotel. He loved the hotel. Long story behind that, but I'm shortening it. And so he bought the hotel, and turns out the bank eventually went out of business, and the hotel is the first hotel in the chain of Hilton hotels.
Yeah, Conrad Hilton. I know that story. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what he went down there with the concept of making a splash in business, becoming successful on his own merits and doing these things. If he were just stuck on the bank went out of business after the Depression. It was a useless bank. The Hilton fortune was built. The real fortune was built on that hotel. Was he a failure because he went down or not? His mission was to buy the bank. The true mission was to create a business empire, and he did. It's all about how you look at it. He either failed that mission or he won. A pretty good job, I think.
Well, I would say that if he had insisted on buying the bank, no, it has to be that bank, there would be no Hilton hotels.
That's the point, exactly. And that's the thing that when people get that's the exciting part. That's what I see happen in my life. Letting go of that exact vision. We don't really understand there's no way I could have ever imagined the life I have now. I could not have envisioned. I can envision the feeling of the abundance, of feeling great, not being depressed, having a lot of energy. I can feel that, but I could never have envisioned the life I have now. It just wouldn't be possible.
Yeah, but it's so much better. That's the good part. It's so much better.
Oh, it is. I have a life I couldn't have created because I didn't know such a life existed, but I could imagine how it would feel. And this is where the success of the law of attraction worked for me. But things would happen, and it seemed like they were like, oh boy, this isn't good. But it turns out everything that happened put me in a position for that next step. It really worked out well.
I mean, the odds against you when you were first, you described, and you told this story many times in many different ways here on the podcast and in your book, The Bench, and so forth, about, you were working in your father's insurance company, you hated it, and you got into the gambling thing and became a big addiction, and you lost your home, and you lost everything, and you're eating out of a dumpster in the back of a McDonald's in Las Vegas, Nevada, and you have no idea where you're going to live, and then later on you're arrested and thrown into prison, and I mean, you were just at the worst possible place you could think of you could be by everyone's possible measurement. And yet, despite the fact that the odds were so heavily stacked against you, you managed, through changing your mindset, to turn your life into something that you couldn't even possibly dreamed of at that point. It was so far outside of the range of possibilities that it couldn't have even occurred to you how it could have played out the way it did.
Right. Exactly. And that's so important to see. That's so important to see. And we live in that, and we live in that daily stuff. And I'm so grateful that all that happened, and I'm so grateful for all that I have right now. But it maybe things were so overwhelming and so unbelievable that they needed to be that crazy and so helpless that I could have what I have today.
It's nice to know, too, we don't have to go that extreme. We don't have to go the way that Joel went.
Yeah.
We don't have to make it that painful and then go through all that dysfunctionality and so forth. We can actually do a simpler approach.
Yeah. I sort of did the blueprint for the way maybe not to do it.
Not to
but it
do
still
it,
got
right.
us there. But, so it's really good. But I again, and that led me eventually through an unusual chain of events to meet you, and really develop this show. We've added these other co-hosts. I mean, it's been such an amazing journey, and we're still in the middle of it. I know it's just going somewhere, and it just keeps getting better and better every week.
Oh, I have this feeling of anticipation. It, kind of like from the Broadway show West Side Story, where Tony says something good is coming, right? That's what it feels like, and I don't even know what, but something good is coming. You can just tell it's there.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before we go, I just want to take a moment to remind our listeners who are not yet subscribers. Most of our listeners are, but if you're not yet a subscriber, please take the time to do so. Our subscribers are loving it. They're literally listening to 35 to 45 episodes per month all the way through start to finish because they're loving it so much. And you can do the same thing. It's free. It takes about a minute to do. All you do is go to the homepage at loatoday.net. The instructions are right there. And when you're done, oh man, you're going to have like the best list of shows coming to your podcast to your smartphone every day. In fact, Joel, would you believe we actually have binge listeners? We have people who listen to us like one after another, one show after another continuously. It's amazing.
Wow, that it's humbling to understand or to feel that many people are listening and getting value to not just one show, but they get enough value to listen show after show after show.
Exactly. Well, this has been great. My only sad part is you and I only do it once a week, but I can't wait to talk to you again next week.
Buddy, you have a good one.
Yep, you do the same. We'll see you all next time as well here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.